So today we are going to be doing a meditation on Lord Balaram. He's the source of joy, the source of spiritual strength. We're going to look at his identity. We're going to meditate on how he's the destroyer of passion and ignorance, and how he's the original spiritual master. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivasesis Nivani Paskatyade Sitarni. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raganatam Vitam Sam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha Vanchakapati Visha Vipasindhabi Vichapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo. So instead of singing Jaya Radha Madhava, I'd like us to sing the verse from Das Avatar about Lord Balaram. So you'll need to stay on mute, but if you could repeat after me. Vahasiva Pusi Vishade. Vahasiva Pushi Vishade. Vasanam Jaladabam. Vasanam Jaladabam. Vahasiva Pushi Vishade. Vasanam Jaladabam. So what does this mean? Vahasi means you wear. Vapushi Vishade, on your brilliant white body. Vasanam is clothes. Jalada Abham. So that's the color of a cloud that's heavy with water. So you wear on your brilliant white body clothes that are the color of a cloud heavy with water. Vahasiva Pushi Vishade. Vasanam Jaladabam. Okay. Halahati Biti. Halahati Biti. Milita Yamunabam. Milita Yamunabam. Halahati Biti Milita Yamunabam. Halahati means due to the striking of your plowshare. Biti is feeling great fear. Militas happened. Yamunabham, the personified river. So due to the striking of your plowshare, the Yamuna River felt great fear. Halahati Biti Milita Yamunabam. Halahati Biti Milita Yamunabam. Keshavadvita Haladara Rupa. Keshavadvita Haladara Rupa. Jai Jagadishare. Jaya Jagadishare. Jaya Jagadishare. Keshava, Keshava, which means the Lord of fine hair or the controller of Brahma and Shiva. Drita Haladarupa. Dripa is to hold up. Haladar is the Haladara, to hold up the plow. Haladarupa, one who's holding up the plow. And Jai Jagadish Hari, all glories to the Lord of the universe. So let's sing it all together. Vahasiva Pushi Vishade Vasanam Jaladabam. You chant.
Vahasiva Pushi Vishade. Sorry.
Alahati Biti Melita Yamunabam. Please chant on mute. Mahasiva Pusi Vishadeva Sanam Jaladabam. Chant. Alahati Biti Melita Yamunabam.
Alahati Bhiti Milita Yamunabham.
Keshavadvita Haladana Rupa.
Keshavadhrita Haladara Rupa.
Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Jaya Jagadisha Hare.
Jaya Jagadisha Hare.
Jaya Jagadisha Hare.
Jai Jagadisha Hare.
Jai Jagadisha Hare.
So first thing we're going to look at is Balaram as the source of joy. As Srila Prabhupada says, unless we are joyful, we cannot make any spiritual advancement. And joy is one of the first symptoms of spiritual advancement. So this is a very important point. If we're doing something that robs us of joy, now joy has different flavors. There's different rasas of joy. So, you know, there are fear and anger and horror and compassion as rasas, but those spiritual rasas, if we're feeling those spiritually, then they are also joyful. Materially, lamentation, anger, these things are not joyful. They're a kind of perverted rasa. So many times we find devotees or spiritual practitioners in any religious faith who become absorbed in some material emotion that robs them of joy and peace. As Krishna says, there cannot be any happiness without peace. So peace is the foundation of joy. And if we're absorbing our mind, if we're absorbing our consciousness in something that fills us with anxiety and robs us of joy, we are not in spiritual life. So various emotions are going to go through our body and mind. The three modes of nature are going to go through our body and mind. But if we grab them and identify with them such that we lose our peace and joy, then we are in material consciousness. And that is our choice. We do not have to be the slaves of the thoughts and emotions that travel through our body and mind. We are not to repress them. That's not ours to do. They're Krishna's energy. But we are not meant to be their slaves either. So we are not meant to follow their dictates. We are meant to find joy. And Srila Prabhupada, in speaking about Lord Balaram, likes to quote this from the Padma Purana, Ramante yogi no nante. So anante means without end. Rama means pleasure. The real yogis have unlimited pleasure. So when we're talking about spiritual joy, we're not just talking about some sort of insipid situation. We're talking about a deep and boundless experience of joy. And we should be experiencing this. If we're not, we're doing something wrong. It's a very good barometer, thermometer. It's a good gauge. It's a good gauge. Just like I have the privilege of managing Tulsi's greenhouse here, and there's a thermometer in the greenhouse. Now in the summer, as soon as the temperature hits 81, a fan turns on to keep the greenhouse cooler and keep the air circulating. And in the winter, as soon as the temperature goes down to 60, the heater turns on. Yeah, it's a gauge, right? And we had, now we have a gas heater, but we had, before we got a gas heater, one time we had a power out and people came to me, the temperature's going down. Tulsi's going to die. It was a gauge. It said, you know, the temperature in there is only 36 Fahrenheit. There's a problem. And we found that the electricity had gone off. So we should have this gauge that we should notice. Am I feeling joy? Am I feeling this joy? If I'm not, I'm out of touch, because reality is joyful. Krishna is Satchidananda. Reality is joyful. There's this wonderful quote Srila Prabhupada has in Krishna book, chapter 20, where he says, the materialists see the world as very aggressive, but to the devotee, everything is very happily situated. And again, there's varieties of emotions of happiness. There is spiritual fear and spiritual anxiety and spiritual compassion and spiritual horror even. But they're all types of joy. We always give the example of flavors of ice cream. Pistachio ice cream is still ice cream. It's still going to be cold. You know, butter pecan ice cream is still ice cream. It's still going to be cold. If it's not cold, there's something wrong with it. It's not ice cream. So these varieties of spiritual emotions should all be joyful, and not just energy, because, you know, anger, fear fills us with a kind of energy, but that's material energy. So we should have this gauge. Yes, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 20 to 23, in that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness realized through transcendental senses. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So generally the way that we want to get free of miseries arising from material contact is we want to change the externals, right? If somebody is bothering me, I'll cut my relationship with them, or I'll modify my relationship with them in some way. I'll avoid them, right? I'll move things around in my environment. Now, it's not to say that we should never make any external adjustments. I cut my finger the other day when I was cooking, and so I had to make some external adjustments so that I wouldn't get blood on what I was cooking. And I ended up putting some super glue on it. And I had to make some adjustments so, you know, it wouldn't get infected and so forth. So we may have to make some external adjustments, move our furniture around, or get married, or become renounced, or take a different service, or something like that. I'm not saying we shouldn't make those adjustments, but the way that we're going to get free of material miseries is not like that. One's not going to get free of material miseries by moving around one's furniture, or by getting married, or by becoming renounced, or by having children, or by not having children, or working as a banker, or working as a musician. Those things are not going to free us from material miseries, or having only people around us who like us and are nice to us. That's not going to free us from material miseries. What's going to free us from material miseries is changing our consciousness. And Balaram, Lord Balaram, he's personifying this joyful consciousness. All right, Balaram is the source of joy. Now we're going to look at Balaram as the source of spiritual strength. So Srila Prabhupada likes to quote this, Nayam Atma Bala Hinena Labdhya. One cannot make spiritual advancement without strength. So we're looking at Balarama. We first looked at the Rama. One has to have joy. One cannot make advancement without joy. Joy is a symptom of advancement, and it is a result of advancement. It is a symptom of advancement, and it is a means of advancement. It's both. Joyfulness shows that we are making advancement, and it is part of our process to cultivate joyfulness. So also spiritual strength. Spiritual strength is a symptom of advancement, and it is also cultivating spiritual strength is also how we make advancement. So this is bala, strength. Prabhupada says, one who is less strong or one who has no support of the strength, then he cannot make any progress in spiritual life. One must be spiritually strong. Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna Book, Chapter 2, one cannot attain the supreme platform of self-realization without being sufficiently favored by Balaram. One must have this spiritual strength. So what do we mean by spiritual strength? Well, it's really interesting if we look in Bhagavad Gita 7:11, where Krishna talks about strength. He says, Balam balavatam chaham kama raga vijarjitam. So kama is desire or passion, raga is attachment, vivarjitam, to be victorious over. So Krishna says, I am the strength of the strong, balam balavatam chaham, I am also. I am the strength of the strong, which doesn't have passion and attachment. This is, of course, talking about material passion and material attachment. So again, we can think about this is very actually related to this concept of joyfulness, that one becomes free of passion, ignorance. And again, this is not repression. This is very important. It's not a denial. It's not a repression. It is a detachment. Is it that these have nothing to do with me? These are Krishna's illusory energy. They're not mine. Mm-hmm. Just like sometimes we have gone shopping when we are fasting. It's not recommended to go shopping when you're fasting. So if one is shopping in a food store while one is fasting and one's body is hungry, then the body will see the food and the brain will say, you're supposed to be eating. And so I remember one time when I was foolishly shopping while fasting, and in the food store, in the grocery store, they had baked goods, cakes and cupcakes. And so normally, if I'm not fasting, there was no interest. But because I was fasting, so my brain is saying, you should get those. Of course, I would not get them. They're made with eggs and so many nasty things. But the thought entered the mind. Right? The thought entered the mind. So many thoughts and emotions will enter the mind. So many desires, kama, so much, but we don't let that go. We don't let the thoughts go to kama and raga. Like Krishna says, by contemplating the objects of the sense objects, one develops attachment, raga, such attachment. Lust develops, kama. From lust comes anger, krodha. And then one becomes bewildered. One loses one's intelligence and one forgets everything. And one cannot have any spiritual strength. So the thoughts will come, but we don't contemplate them. The thought passes through. Oh, I should buy that cake. That's the thought. But we don't focus on it. We don't grab it. We don't contemplate it. And then we get free of this kama and raga. We just let it pass through. Oh, there's a thought. There's a thought. And that will be true about anything. Any material desire, any material thought, feelings of anger, and fear, lust, and greed, and envy, pride. This morning here at the temple, the devotee Kamalini gave a wonderful lecture about pride. Krishna telling Indra he's taking away his pride. Thoughts of pride go through us. But vivarjitam, we never allow these things to go to even the contemplation stage. And then we're free of raga and kama. And free of raga and kama, we can have actual strength. And this is Balaram. This is the bala of Balaram. So Srila Prabhupada explained in a lecture in Bhagavad Gita 240, September 13th, 1973 in London. He says this spiritual strength is in sadhana, where we are following the rules and regulations. So one can say one has to get strength to do these things, but also these things give us strength. So here we've put the Panchanga Bhakti, worshiping the deity, chanting the holy name, associating with devotees, going to holy places or making our own home a holy place, and reading scripture, particularly the Bhagavatam, in the association of advanced devotees. So by doing these things, by worshiping the deity, by chanting Hare Krishna, by associating with devotees, by studying the scripture, by going to holy places, we develop the spiritual strength to stop contemplating the various thoughts and emotions and desires that go through our body and mind. We're able to become victorious over them. Why? Because Param Drisvani Vartate. We have Rama, we have joy. These activities of sadhana, they give us that strength to find joy. So there's this real connection between Bala and Rama. The joy gives us strength, the strength gives us joy. And if one can say, well, it takes strength to do this sadhana, that strength to do the sadhana and the strength that comes from the sadhana, that is the mercy of Balarama. So there's another side to spiritual strength. Srila Prabhupada mentions this in a lecture on the Bhagavatam 1.522 on August 3rd, 1974 in Vrindavan. He says spiritual strength means to have good faith in Krishna and Guru. So we had sadhana and we have shraddha. And I like to think spiritual strength, but it'll start with S. And we can remember spiritual strength is sadhana and shraddha. So a lot of our ability to do our sadhana regularly comes from our shraddha. After all, anything we do on a regular basis requires some conviction that that activity, physical activity, mental activity, emotional activity, is going to bring us happiness and freedom from distress. Have some faith like that. Yes? It's like we're in our car, we have some faith that our GPS is going to take us to our destination, so we follow it. We may have some faith in our exercise routine or in our diet. So spiritual strength also means faith that comes from Balarama. And Balaram takes pleasure in exhibiting extraordinary strength. These are the deities from New Mayapur, France. And they have, you can see here that the temple is very poor. You may notice the sign that the temple is very poor, that the garlands are made of leaves. But the deities have outfits for each of the 4 seasons. Of course, in India, there are 6 seasons, but this is their springtime outfit. It looks like Krishna and Balaram are walking through the spring forest. So Balaram is also called Balaram because he gets Rama, he gets pleasure from his Bala, from his strength. And when we meditate on Lord Balaram, we also find great joy in our spiritual strength, which gives us more joy, which gives us more spiritual strength, which gives us more joy. So who is Balaram? Who's giving us joy and spiritual strength? Right? Isn't that what we want? We want spiritual strength and joy. Who is this Balaram? So Krishna is the fountainhead of all incarnations. And Lord Balaram is his second body. Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, is the primeval Lord, the original form of Godhead. And Balaram is his first expansion. The Lord has unlimited expansions. Advaitam Achyutam Anadi Anantarupam. Anantarupam can mean his form's unlimited, like Madhyasoda looks in his mouth and there's a universe. It also means that he has unlimited forms. He has unlimited forms, as many forms as the waves of the ocean. And yet there's one God who has so many forms. And the forms that have unlimited potency are called svamsa. So Krishna and Balarama are the same identity. They differ only in form. Of course, they have different personality. They're exhibiting different varieties of personality. Each of us jivas, we have a complex personality. I mean, there's many different analysis of personality styles, personality types. There's the extrovert, the introvert, the people person, the task person, the cautious person, the risk-taking person. There's so many different ways of understanding personality styles. And, we have astrology, where is your sun? What's your sun sign? What's your moon sign? What's your rising sign? What nakshatra is it in? So many things. But each person is unique. Each person is unique, and we have very complex personalities. Even someone who's introverted is not introverted all the time. Someone who's extroverted is not extroverted all the time. Someone who's cautious is not cautious all the time, or they'd never get out of bed. Someone who's a risk taker is not a risk taker all the time, or they wouldn't look both ways before they cross the street. So we have complexity. And Krishna's personality has been analyzed by Rupa Goswami as Dhirodhata, Dhira Prasanta, Dhira Lalita, and Dhirodhata. But actually his personality is unlimitedly complex. And so in his various expansions, each expansion exhibits somewhat a different combination of Krishna's personality. So there are subtle or sometimes very marked differences. Just like we don't find Ramachandra acting as Dhira Lalita very much. Somewhat, perhaps with Sita, but not generally, right? Ramachandra is primarily Dhirodhata, and he's also to some extent Dhira Prasanta and sometimes Dhirodhata. So each of it's like, I exhibit different aspects of my personality in different circumstances and with different people, but my form can undergo some change, but not much. But with Krishna, he has different forms for each of these different complex combinations of his personality. So Balaram is the Lord's first bodily expansion. He assists in the Lord's pastimes. He's a swamsa expansion of the Lord. So there's no difference in potency between Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. And as he's the first expansion, Balaram is the chief deity among the first quadruple forms. And he's the foremost assistant of Krishna in his pastimes. Sankarshan is the original shelter of the Purusha, from whom this world is created and in whom it is destroyed. The Sankarshan, who is the transcendental pure goodness, is a partial expansion of Lord Balaram. All right, so now that we know something about Lord Balaram and we know that he's the source of our spiritual joy and our spiritual strength, we're going to look at the fact that Lord Balaram destroys passion and ignorance. And we've discussed this a little bit already in discussing about spiritual strength and joy. So we're going to go a little bit more deeply into this. And so he's the destroyer of passion and ignorance. And he destroys passion and ignorance that, according to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, are symbolized by two demons. Now, these demons they were actual personalities who were factually, historically present and killed by Krishna, but they also metaphorically represent passion and ignorance. All right, so Pralambasura represents passion, represents this mode of passion. So the cowherd boys are playing. This is our understanding of God, that God is very playful. He's always playing. He's always having fun, right? In many religious systems, their idea of God is that he's this old man who's just sending people to heaven or hell. You go to heaven, you go to hell, you go to heaven, you go to hell. That we're thinking like that God is like that, and just kind of sitting on his throne, very old and very sober, while everybody's praising him. But God is always playing. So on this particular day, the Acharyas say, so one of the cowherd boys was kept home by his mother. And so this demon Pralamba took the form of that boy and entered into pastimes. So we call this a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? When a demon disguises themselves as a devotee. So such was the case, right? Ravana described himself as a holy man to kidnap Sita. And in the United States, I think there's about 2,500 crimes every year committed by criminals who artificially dress themselves as police officers, right? Because, if someone who looks like a police officer pulls you over, look like they're in a police car while you're driving, you're going to stop. You're going to be obedient. Or a police officer knocks on your door. So if you really want to be an effective demon, you disguise yourself as a devotee. You disguise yourself as a saintly person. So demons coming in disguise as saintly persons, it's been happening from the beginning of time. And we should notice that the cowherd boys couldn't perceive that their friend was their apparent friend was actually a demon. So this is a very instructive thing, because we are enjoined not to criticize Vaishnavas. In fact, the Uttama Adhikari doesn't even have an inner propensity to criticize others. Criticism of others is almost always motivated by pride and envy. Just see the faults of this other person that I don't have. Of course, many studies of psychology have brought out the fact that we tend to criticize faults in others that we do have, whether or not we're aware of that. So often criticizing others is a way to deflect from our own faults, right? We had many years ago in the Hare Krishna movement, I remember some sannyasis, apparent sannyasis, who would spend most of their class time criticizing those who were married, but secretly they were keeping some woman. So in order, which eventually, of course, became revealed. So in order to deflect criticism from their own activities, they were criticizing that behavior in others. And actually, of course, their own behavior was far worse. So this is very common. So we are being advised, we're advised not to criticize anyone, but especially not to be critical of other spiritual practitioners. But the fact that there are actually demons who disguise themselves as devotees, actually there are. There have been since the beginning of time. Right? We think about Rahu, who made himself look like a demigod. He was sitting between the sun and the moon. But we find that the devotees generally cannot recognize them. Right? It was Mohini, who recognized Rahu, not the sun and the moon, even though the sun and the moon were his perpetual enemies. So the devotees were not able to recognize Pralambasura, the cowherd boys. But Krishna could recognize. Krishna saw, that's a demon. So it is generally, the vast majority of the time, wise to let Krishna sort that out. Let Krishna find demons who are disguised as devotees. It's not the job of the devotees unless Krishna points it out to us and gives it to us specifically as our job. And that doesn't mean Krishna told me to do this, God told me to do this. But unless very, very clearly it is our service to the Lord, which generally it isn't, we let Krishna reveal that. Why is that? Because among the sadhakas, there's going to be demoniac qualities. That doesn't make them a demon. If we honestly look in our own heart, which will happen as we progress in bhakti, we'll see that we have demoniac qualities. We'll see that. We'll see that we're attached to demoniac qualities. We act in evil ways. We'll find that. And so we shouldn't be surprised if that's true of the other sadhakas. I mean, that's reasonable. It's very interesting. Rupa Goswami explains that an impetus for love of God, one of the impetuses, the vibhava, the stimulants for love of God, is the alambana, the basic stimulants for love of God, are God himself and God's devotees. And among God's devotees, one category is the practicing devotee, and specifically Rupa Goswami says the practicing devotee who is not free of anarthas. They can also stimulate our love of God. They can be one of the basic foundational shelters of our love of God. And we find this practically in our Hare Krishna movement. We find that practicing devotees who still have anarthas can be a shelter for love of God for us. They can be the ashraya of the vibhav. They can. And so we want to be very, very careful that we don't look at someone's anarthas, which means a demoniac tendency, and just label people as demons. If someone's actually a demon pretending to be a devotee, Krishna will find them and kill them. So that's what happened. Krishna noticed this, and the cowherd boys, they split up into groups, right? And they were wrestling, and whoever won the wrestling, the winners would ride on the back of the losers. Right? The winners would ride on the back of the losers. So in this case, Pralamba was in Krishna's group who won, and Pralamba ended up riding on the back. Balaram's group won. So Balaram's group won, and Balaram was therefore riding on the shoulders of Pralamba as the victor. Now, Pralamba being an intelligent demon, demons can also be intelligent. So, duskritina, they may have very meritorious qualities that they use badly. So Pralamba thought, well, I can see Krishna's really powerful. So let me take Balaram away from Krishna, and that way I'll be able to kill him. So the problem is that Balaram is holding up all the universes, each of which feels like a little mustard seed on the top of his head. He's very powerful. And as Pralamba took Balaram away, he started feeling Balaram to be as heavy as a mountain. And so he wasn't able to hold his disguise. He was requiring energy to hold his disguise. Just like sometimes we may be pretending to be very nice when actually we're feeling very angry. And we're using some energy to pretend to be pleasant. But if things get too difficult, we're not able to maintain it, and our real mentality exhibits itself. So after a while, the demon he couldn't have the strength to carry Balaram and maintain his semblance as a cowherd boy. So he assumed his real form. Now, this also happens as one is engaged with Balaram, with spiritual life. We cannot keep our pretense. We cannot maintain all of our masks and our pretense. We become revealed, at least to ourselves, for who we really are. And those who are actually demons, Krishna reveals them for who they are. Krishna makes it obvious. And so then Balaram, it's so interesting, Balaram says, how is this carrier changed in every way? I thought he was a cowherd boy. How is it that now he's appearing as a demon? So he starts hitting him with his fists. And he destroys him. And of course, then the cowherd boys are all saying, well done, well done, well done, well done. Yes. And Pralamba had taken Balaram all the way to the Bandira tree across the Yamuna, at which point another Leela takes place with the animals wandering off in the forest fire. So this Pralamba represents the mode of passion. And the mode of passion can come disguised as bhakti. We can think we're very passionate about our bhakti, pride and arrogance, and being dharmic for the sake of name and fame, wanting respect. wanting to fight for justice and ethics and morals in the world and punish all evildoers, and become a great hero for that. That is all the motive. So it can look like bhakti. It's very interesting. Ignorance could also look like bhakti, but passion can very much look as if it's something wonderful. Srila Prabhupada describes that the mode of passion is the main mode in human society. And it's in the mode of passion that there's all, the museums and the schools and the libraries and all of the aspects of human civilization, that we're going to become bigger and better, and we're going to make a wonderful world, and we're going to use our human ingenuity. It's all the mode of passion, but it looks very wonderful. It looks very wonderful. So when we have spiritual strength and joy from Balaram, then we become detached from this Rajagun. We see Rajagun for what it is. We see Balaram reveals the demon of our Rajagun. And we're like, I don't want you. All right, what about Tamagun? Here's the possible. The Lord rode his future on the land. Krishna glorified the beings who were always around Balaram. Sometimes the boys would play that some of them were deer and some of them were tigers. Sometimes they apparently got tired from playing. So they would rest, they would sing. They're very hungry. We are very hungry. Can you kill native customers? Went to the Solomon forest. Balaram shook a tree, made the fruit fall, and all the other trees started falling. Renuka came and kicked Balaram in the chest, and Balaram whirled around. And his friend came, and Balaram whirled around. So this is the killing of ignorance. This is the destruction of ignorance. I and mine. I'm not going to share with anybody. My fruit that I've tended, that I've planted, it's for me. I'm entitled. If someone's coming from my stuff, then I'm a victim. So through our spiritual strength and our joy, we're able to conquer this ignorance. Ignorance, again, it will sometimes go through the body and mind. That is not avoidable. But we will not identify with it. When the body and mind are saying, you're a victim, these people are trying to hurt you, you need to go fight and destroy them. You're entitled to this thing that people are trying to take away from you. You poor thing. The Balaram destroys this. Through our spiritual strength and our joy, we can become detached. Balaram frees us from passion, ignorance, and brings us to goodness. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes regarding Danika and Pralamba, there are two demons killed by Sri Baladev, but the contaminations they represent will have to be removed by dint of the devotee's own endeavors. This is one of the secret mysteries of Raj Bhakti. If one endeavors in a very humble mood, Krishna will certainly show his mercy. Then upon the awakening of the mood of Sri Baladev in the devotee's heart, these contaminations will instantly be removed. So the key here is that we have to be humble and we have to make some effort. There are anarthas that are removed automatically by Krishna simply by our engaging in the process of bhakti. But letting go of our attachment to passion and ignorance is something in which we really have to participate in a mood of humility. And then Bhaktivinoda says they'll be instantly gone. So this is because Balaram is the original spiritual master. Actually, Srila Prabhupada says the spiritual master is not a particular person. The spiritual master is a truth. Spiritual master is a principle. It's this energy of Balaram, who, when we practice our sadhana with faith, shraddha and sadhana, and we gain bala, we gain spiritual strength, and we experience Rama, we become enlightened. Right? In Krishna book, chapter 2, Prabhupada says, Balaram is the source of all spiritual power or bala by which one can attain the highest bliss of life, which is called Ramana. And of course, Lord Balaram also appears as Lord Nityananda.
Shiva Pushi Vishade Keshava Vasanam Jaladabham Keshava Bhaka Shiva Pushi Vishade Keshava Vasanam Jaladabham Keshava Halakati Bhiti Vinitaya Munabham Halakati Bhiti Vinitaya Munabham Keshavadhita Haladhara Rupa Keshavadhita Haladhara Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Keshava Jaya Jagadisha Hare.
O Kesava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who has assumed the form of Balaram, the wielder of the plow, all glories to you. In your brilliant white body, you wear garments the color of a fresh blue rain cloud. These garments are colored like the beautiful dark hue of the river Yamuna, who feels great fear due to the striking of your plowshare. Here again are Krishna, Balaram, and Mayapur. This is in their winter outfits. So we have about 10 minutes. If anybody has any questions or discussions.
Looks like no one has questions. I'm surprised. Maybe Mataji, maybe if you can, Mataji, you are on mute. Probably let me see.
Everyone is just swimming in the ocean of meditating on Lord Balaram. Of course, there are many other pastimes of Lord Balaram. Think about how Lord Balaram has his rasa dance with the gopis. He has his own gopis.
Maybe I'm thinking if we can maybe expand on identifying these demons, representation of various demons which Lord Balaram killed, how to identify those demons in our hearts and how to rectify and fix how we can perform or increase our sadhana.
Very good. Well, the main way of identifying them is they steal joy. Our joy vanishes. That's the immediate means of identification. So when we identify with ignorance and passion, joy immediately vanishes. It's gone. I mean, there again, passion and ignorance have their energies. They have a kind of energy. There's a kind of energy in anger and things like that. But peace and joy are gone. So that's the main identification. Do I feel peaceful and joyful? If I embrace this thought, if I embrace this feeling, if I embrace this desire, am I experiencing peace and joy? If the answer is no, then okay, that's got to be ignorance or passion. It's a really simple test. So that's the main means of identifying them. And then you move away from them and say, okay, you're Krishna's energies, you're the modes of nature under Durga Devi, but you're not mine. It's just like you see police cars going on the road to catch a criminal. You just get out of the way, you let them go past. Yes, Tarni Rana.
Thank you so much for teaching us. I had just a follow-up regarding this question. You were saying that once peace and joy goes away, we can understand that anartha is there in our heart. But then in Bhagavad Gita, we understand that peace and happiness is a byproduct of the mode of goodness. So you're trying to say that yes, so mode of goodness, when the person is in mode of goodness, then those anarthas are not there. So I just wanted more clarification on that, because the modes are always interacting with each other for supremacy, right? So
okay, you're going deep here. You're saying, as far as I understand, correct me if I'm not understanding you right. What I think you're saying is, even if we get rid of passion and ignorance, we could still become conditioned by the mode of goodness. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, Mataji.
Yes, very good. Thank you. Well, first of all, being conditioned by the mode of goodness is far superior to being conditioned by the mode of passion and ignorance. Conditioned by the mode of goodness is a good platform for engaging in spiritual life. Ajay Patak Maharaj one time compared it to an airport. So you can go to an airport if you just hang around, if you just work in the airport. But if you go to the airport to take an airplane. So the problem is that all of us conditioned souls have a false ego where we think that we're the center of the universe and we're better than everybody else, and the world's meant for our enjoyment, et cetera, et cetera. So that false ego can have many flavors, and the main flavors are sattva, rajas, and tamas. So to have a sattva flavored ahankara is more conducive for spiritual life than a rajas flavored ahankara or a tamas flavored ahankara. It's still an ahankara, but if we're not ready yet to let go of our ahankara, if we're not ready to let go of our false ego, then better to have the false ego in sattva. That will be a springboard. Now, if we get attached to sattva gun, we're also going to have a problem. We do have to let go of sattva gun, but in the beginning, it's much more conducive to be attached to sattva gun than to be attached to rajagun or tamas. If we're going to be attached to a false ego anyway, if we're not at the point that we're saying, okay, I'm ready to let go of all my false ego. Well, okay, then take this kind of false ego. If I want to enjoy tasty food, if I'm still attached to enjoying tasty food, at least let me enjoy healthy, tasty food. It's still a problem. If you want to enjoy sex, at least enjoy married sex. I mean, it's like that. Okay, well, here's a form that's not going to be as harmful and that can be a springboard for you. But ultimately, yes, sattva guna is still self-centered. It's still me. It's still prideful. I am so spiritual. I am so balanced. I am so happy. Krishna says one becomes conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. I'm such a joyful person. I'm such an insightful person. I had someone telling me this the other day. Actually, this person tells me this frequently. I'm so insightful. I can just understand how everything works. So that's, it's a conditioning of sattva guna. A sense that I'm not so sinful. I'm not, running around trying to enjoy the world. So ultimately, the sattva we want is a different kind of sattva. It's very interesting that when Rupa Goswami describes the sattvika bhavas, the involuntary expressions of ecstatic love, he first defines sattva. And his definition of sattva is that which is trying to please Krishna. So that's not sattva guna, which is I'm such a balanced, harmonious person. I'm so wonderful because I'm so spiritual. That's sattva guna. I mean, we run into sattva guna people all the time in our preaching. Yes, a lot of the yoga types, and they're sattva guna types. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking the real, ultimately, Vishuddha Sattva is I'm experiencing unlimited joy. Sattva gun joy is bounded. I think of it like a beach ball size bound. But Vishuddha Sattva is boundless. But anyway, Sattva gun is a good segue. We would definitely highly recommend Sattva gun to the beginner. It will have to be given up, but for the beginner, it's a good step forward to be in Sattva gun, even though it's still egotistical and it's still going to be painful and it's not spiritual, actually. Does that answer your question?
Beautiful answer. Thank you so much, Mataji. Very nicely explained. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Go ahead. Just reflecting on something, but go ahead.
Mataji, thank you so much for beautifully presenting the teachings of Lord Balaram, and sharing with us this amazing wisdom. One point, if you can, Mataji, also share Balaram's love for Duryodhana.
Oh, you want to talk about that? Well, that gives us hope, doesn't it?
And him leaving the scene and not playing a role in Mahabharata. I'm just trying to see how it fits into what we learn from it in terms of our seva services, because sometimes we don't feel that joy, and then some devotees feel, okay, maybe I have to step away from my seva to get that joy. So what can we learn? Please share your wisdom. Thank you so much.
I'm trying to put that together. If I'm not feeling joy in my seva, then either I'm doing something that's not my nature, I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing, or I'm doing what I should be doing, but with the wrong consciousness. You know, when Arjuna wanted to step away from his seva because it wasn't giving him joy, Krishna says, no, this is the right seva for you. You're just doing it in the wrong consciousness. So, but sometimes it may also be that the reason we're not getting joy in our seva is it's not something that's compatible for us. It's not it's not what we should be doing. And sometimes that changes over our lifespan. So, you know, what we should be doing when we're 20 in seva may not be what we should be doing when we're 50 in seva. As far as Lord Balaram with Duryodhana, that's very mysterious, isn't it? But Krishna explains that he loves everyone. He says, I don't envy anyone. I'm not partial to anyone. No one is a friend. No one is an enemy. So Krishna loves the demoniac as well, which is very useful because I'm demoniac. So I'm very encouraged by the fact that Krishna in some form also loves demons. I mean, as I go on chanting Hare Krishna, I see more and more that actually I'm not a devotee, that I'm a demon, actually. But Krishna still loves all his parts and parcels. I mean, Krishna loves the jivas that are, you know, wasps and mosquitoes and poison ivy. He loves those jivas too. It's not that he's not in their heart. So the Lord in some form gives some facility to everyone. So I see that Lord Balaram was giving Duryodhana a chance by his association, giving him an opportunity to change. You know, it's not that a demon always has to stay a demon. Even devotees can fall down into like Vidvita. Vidvita was originally a devotee of Lord Ram, and by that association, he acted like a demon, or Bhaumasura, who was the Lord's own son, who became demoniac. So devotees can become influenced by demoniac tendencies, and demons can become devotees, like Bali Maharaj, Vibhishan. So there's a chance. There's a chance given. You know, when Vibhishan wanted to surrender to Ram and Lakshman was objecting and the monkeys were objecting, and Ram says, you know, even if Ravana comes to surrender, I will accept him. So Balaram's giving Duryodhana a chance. Duryodhana is saying, I want you to teach me club fighting, and here's a chance to associate with the Lord. And this is, of course, remember that Balaram is guru principle. So a guru, this is nicely explained in Madhurya Kadambini by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, that the Lord is neutral, but the devotees are merciful. And we call this mercy causeless. And particularly the preachers, who are all acting to some extent as gurus, are giving causeless mercy. They give mercy to people whether they deserve it or not. Think about Lord Nityananda with Jagai and Madhai, of course. So if you don't do that, then how do a lot of jivas ever get an opportunity? But then, Balaram was disgusted that Duryodhana is there using this knowledge he got from Balaram to fight with Bhima. Yeah, honestly, he wasn't so happy with Bhima either, because they were both in a mood of vengeance. So if we get the association of a spiritual master, even despite the fact that we're not qualified, despite the fact that if we're honest, we're very demoniac. We're envious, we're cruel, we're prideful. We're full of lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion. I mean, if we're honest. And in spite of that, we have the association of a spiritual master, then we need to act properly. Otherwise, the spiritual master may walk away in disgust. Just, that happens. And it doesn't happen very often. I mean, there were hardly any disciples that Srila Prabhupada rejected. It's a very unusual thing, but it does happen. We need to make sure that we use nicely what we've been given. Okay, I think I should end now. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to glorify Lord Balaram, who has his appearance day this month. Balaram ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Yeah, I was just reflecting. What a wonderful question. It brought so many different flavors in my head. Basically, it brought how Srila Prabhupada is so merciful, despite having so many wonderful devotees, but they have their own challenges. The temple presidents are different designations they had, but they had to go through so much. Sometimes they took the money away, or they basically use their power to do other things, what Srila Prabhupada not wanted them to do. But still, Prabhupada has given his mercy, despite they fall down, despite whatever the case. He doesn't want to change them. He doesn't want to change presidents. He wants to give them option again and again. Give his causeless mercy.
Yeah, I saw that personally. I mean, of course, Krishna's like that with Indra, where he says, just don't do it again. Go back and be king of heaven and don't do it again. I mean, yeah, there was the case where devotees in Hawaii actually stole this money, and Prabhupada said, at a certain point, Prabhupada said, just forget about it. You don't have to even repay the money. Just come back. They didn't. But, that's, yeah. I mean, that doesn't mean that we should let, ISKCON be run by criminals. One has to be a little intelligent. We don't want to put devotees in harm's way in the name of mercy to criminals. They may have to be dealt with. But this kindness that Krishna is showing, and that Prabhupada is showing, it's kind of remarkable.
Yeah.
So again, thank you very, very much. Prabhupada.